And we very much appreciate your being with us on the starting lineup, brought to you by Play It Again Sports in the Fremont Shopping Center, Battlefield in Fremont, Springfield, Swing Right Golf at the south end of Campbell Avenue, a little bit north of Nixa, by Citizens Bank of Rogersville with two locales, one adjacent to Highland Springs and the other in Rogersville, and by Marshfield Chevrolet at the I-44 exit and a couple of left turns, and you're there driving right into Marshfield Chevrolet. I'm Ned Reynolds along with
Scott Puryear. And go ahead. You want to say it? Yeah, I was going to say, I wanted to mention we have no Art Haynes today. Art, unfortunately, having to attend a funeral, so Art will be back tomorrow. But we're going to talk some Cardinals baseball. One of our regular guests on here, and you can find his content on 1021theone.com, is Rob Raines of STLSportspage.com. That's hard to say all in one sentence there. Rob, good morning, and thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, guys. How's everybody down there?
Doing great. Had a few days off, no baseball. Kind of get your thoughts first on Jordan Walker's performance in the Home Run Derby and what a snoozer the All-Star game was a night later.
Yeah, it's a good thing we had the Derby to still talk about, because we wouldn't have much to say about the All-Star game. That was kind of an anticlimactic event for sure. But yeah, Walker's performance was unbelievable, and I think part of the reason it was so cool was because we didn't expect it. You know, I think at least in my perspective, I mean, I was happy he made it to the Derby, wanted him to do well, but I honestly would have told you he had no chance of winning it going into the thing. So the fact that he did it and silenced that crowd in Philadelphia the way he did, it was really special. So it'll be really interesting to see now how he builds off of this, for the rest of the season.
You make a very interesting point too. We interrupting something here?
I got a little feedback coming there, I think.
And
what's that?
We have some feedback somewhere.
I think it's on your end, maybe. Do you have something turned up or delayed? Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
Anyway, this leads into the second half of the season at the standalone game tonight. What do you, Rob, expect from what you have seen and the way the Cardinals closed the campaign, the way they played the traditional first half at 5 games over 500? What do you expect in the second half?
I expect it to be about the same, honestly. I think, if you do the math, if they play 5 games over 500 for the last 67 games of the year here, they'll get to 86 wins, which I think will put them right on the cusp of a wild card playoff spot. I don't think it'll win the division, but I think they'll be in the hunt there right to the end, and that's kind of what I expect. That's kind of where they position themselves right now. It'll be interesting to see what kind of moves they make at the trading deadline. I don't expect anything earth-shattering. I don't think they're going to make a move to try to that would just assure them of getting a playoff spot. I think they're going to still make moves that they think will help them in the long term, but we'll see. We'll see what that turns out to be.
Does that mean they do or don't get rid of some of their veteran pitchers like a Dustin May, or do they shop him to see what they can get?
Yeah. I think that it depends on the offers. I mean, I think they're open for business, and they'll see what they can do, because I think they still have a couple of guys at some point. The second half of the season, you've got to give Quinn Matthews a chance in St. Louis and see what he can do. I mean, the last 6 weeks or whatever, he's pitched terrific down in Memphis. I think we've seen enough of Hunter Dobbins to know that he deserves a shot. Then you still have Bryson Mott. So I think that they've got some guys that they can fill in with. If they do make a move with a starting pitcher, they've got some options to replace them. And, quite frankly, they said this is the year they want to find out about some of these guys. And especially pitching, to me, you can't find out about how well a pitcher is going to do in the big leagues until he's pitching in the big leagues.
Well, this is a trip coming up now to Phoenix, and they play the Arizona Cardinals out there. No, they don't need them. They play the Arizona Diamondbacks.
That would be interesting if they did.
But the fact of the matter remains, it's going to be a very tough series, because Arizona is practically in the same circumstance that the Cardinals are. What do you expect?
Well, the good thing about the Cardinals at this point is they play better on the road than they have at home. Mm-hmm. So, the fact that they're starting the second half with 6 games on the road, 3 in Arizona, 3 against the John Mozeliak's Angels in Anaheim, maybe it's a good thing. That's one thing they have to do better the second half. They have to figure out a way to score more runs and win more games at home.
Joshua Baez sitting down in Memphis, AAA, 28 homers, 69 RBIs, 14 stolen bases, hitting .250. Not great for AAA, a lot of swing and miss in his game. Do we see him this month, next month? Do they run the risk of him getting bored down there and maybe getting a little frustrated, kind of like what else do I need to do to come up?
Well, two answers to the question. One is I don't think he'll get bored, because this is still his first year at AAA, so he doesn't have that experience, and the fact that he really only had half a year at AA last year, so he's still 23 years old. So I don't think you're going to get bored with at this point of his career. I think he's probably hoping that he gets a chance to play in the big leagues, and I would think that they will. Again, that may depend on what moves they make or don't make at the trade deadline. I think the one thing about it is if he comes up here, he's going to play. So they really have to have a position for him to play, 4 out of 5 days or 5 out of 6 days. I don't think, and not just a DH spot. I mean, there has to be a spot, an opportunity in left field or in center field, for him to play regularly, or there's really no point because they still need to have him to get at bats. But I think they would like to get him up here simply because you kind of could follow the Mason Wynn path from a few years ago where you get him up here for that last month of the season, let him see what the big league experience is all about, get a few at-bats under his belt, not enough to screw up his status as a rookie candidate for next year, but yet kind of so he can come into camp whenever camp is next year and have a little more understanding, a little more feeling of what to expect coming into the season.
Can he be an everyday center fielder? I know he's got the speed to cover the ground, but what are your thoughts on that?
He played a lot of center field early this year in Memphis, but then he hasn't played as much when Victor Scott II got sent down. He's played more center. So I honestly have not seen him play enough in center field. I've seen him play more in the corners. So, I think he probably could be. Could he play it? Yes. Would he be a Gold Glove candidate out there? I don't know. But I think that's, it'd be interesting to see while he's still in Memphis now this next month or so where they position him in the lineup.
Rob, in your opinion, totally subjective, biggest plus of the first half, biggest minus of the first half?
Well, I have to give you two biggest pluses. One is J.J. Weatherholt, because I think that they expected him to come up here and play well. I don't think they expected him to be, as good as he's been and to be kind of the leader of that team the way he's been and the spark plug for that team. And then I don't think they had any clue that Jordan Walker would be as productive as he's been. Even as late as spring training, there were still a lot of questions about what you were going to get out of him. So I think there's no question those are the two biggest positives for the team. And you want to know the negative too? Is that what you said?
Uh-huh.
I would say probably the middle relief. I mean, I think the inconsistency of the offense, especially at home, and then just they still can't seem to find the right combination of guys, in between to bridge that gap between the starting pitching and the back end of the bullpen.
Do you still see Victor Scott and perhaps Gorman as a part of this program?
At the moment, no, because I just don't think they're playing well enough at AAA to force the Cardinals' hand to bring them back up. It might be, and it's hard to say because you never want to trade somebody when they're at a low point because the value is going to be, the return is going to be a lot less than you think it should have been if you traded those guys a year or two ago. So, but you almost get to the point where you think it'd be better for both of them to get a fresh start somewhere else.
Yeah, Gorman's hitting 121 at Memphis since he went down, and it looks like his will to live has basically left him with what's going on down there. Is he one of those? He's 26 years old. What went wrong here with him? And I guess the thing that maybe helps and hurts is we see what happened with Jordan Walker rebounding and coming back from two very, very mediocre years to be one of the best players in the National League this year. Is there still hope, you think, in their minds, or do you, like you said, do you think maybe they just need a reset?
I think there's hope, and I think that was the expectation or the optimism when they sent both those guys down there that they would find their stroke in a less pressurized situation and be able to put things back together. I mean, Gorman hit 27 home runs as a rookie in the big leagues. I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know where that went. I mean, the one thing I guess where it went is pitchers kind of figured out a way to get him out, and he just couldn't stop swinging at the high fastballs and just wasn't making enough contact. I mean, he still hit some home runs, but just the average kind of cratered a little bit. So, it's kind of one of those mysteries of baseball about what happens to guys sometimes, and just hopefully he can get his confidence back and kind of find that stroke again.
Rob, this is not intended to be negative, but is that a possibility?
Oh, go ahead.
Have the pitchers developed a book on Jordan Walker yet, or is that still to come?
Well, they still know that if they throw a low and away slider and swing, a sweeper out there, there's a good chance he's still going to swing and miss at it. But he has done a better job of laying off of that pitch, and the strikeouts are down. And I think he's certainly making more contact. He's been more patient at the plate, and seems like he's okay with hitting with two strikes now. So I mean, he's never going to me, he's never going to totally eliminate that swing and miss part of his game. That's just going to always be part of his game. But as long as he can control it a little bit and not fall into those really horrendous slumps where he strikes out, 10 times in 12 at bats or whatever, I think I think the performance and the upside of his game is going to let us live with that.
What do you think? And you did an excellent story on Jordan Walker, I believe, last month. Kind of really dove into his background and how he's handled the comeback, relying on friends back in Georgia to kind of keep him through it. What do you think Monday night did for him in terms of confidence to pull off what he did the way he did, beating Schwarber in his backyard? And was that kind of the nation's notice that, hey, there's a guy in St. Louis you may hear about for the next 15 years?
Well, we did our podcast yesterday, and it'll be up, here later today, and on your website as well. And I know on the air coming up on Saturday down there. But I think, one of my questions to that was, I don't think next year if they have the fan voting the same way for the All-Star game, I don't think he'll finish 8th in the National League Outfielders voting, which is, of course, where he finished this year. So, yeah, it was kind of his coming out party on the national stage. And I mean, it's understandable why people kind of had written him off from a national perspective, because a lot of people in St. Louis had written him off, the last couple of years. And nobody really knew what to expect. And it happened so quickly, this season, only 3 months into the season or whatever. So, what it'll do for him going forward, I don't think we can answer that question yet. I mean, certainly it helps his confidence. Certainly it's a big boost for him, from a popularity standpoint. You're going to see a lot more, probably of him in interviews and stories about him and things like that. So it gives him a platform now, gives him a chance to grow from it. And what he really does with it, we'll just have to wait and see.
From what you've seen in the first half, give us your projections on the Central Division and the National League period.
Well, Milwaukee will win the division. I think they're the best team in the division, clearly, and I think the Cubs are in a position themselves to be a wild card team. The fight will come down for who the other wild card teams are going to be. The Dodgers are going to be the Dodgers. I think the best race in the league will be between the Braves and the Phillies. The Phillies have gotten back into it. The Braves have had a lot of injuries that they've had to deal with, but they've got a veteran club and they'll be in the mix all the way. And they're kind of a team that also is not afraid to make a deal at the deadline if they have the right opportunity to get better. So that'll be a race to watch. But otherwise, I think you're just looking at who the last couple of wild card spots are going to be.
Rob, Jordan Walker made more in the home run derby on Monday night with $1 million prize than he's made this season, or he will make this season in salary. What do you think the Cardinals would do the rest of this summer and off season to try to lock him up?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. We talked about that on the podcast as well. I think, you look at it and how would it compare to the extension that JJ got? Well, there are a couple of big differences, of course, even though they're approximately, 3 months apart in age. The difference is the experience level. I mean, Walker's eligible for arbitration for the first time next year. So, if you're looking at, basically the same kind of deal that Weatherholt got, you're talking about probably a 5-year contract, which would buy out the 3 arbitration years and then the first couple years of free agency. Problem with that, of course, is with the new labor agreement coming, you don't know what the rules are going to be, if they're going to change the arbitration status, if they're going to change the free agency status. So, I can see him trying to do a long-term deal like a 5-year deal, because then again, he could get probably, average $20 million a year, maybe on that deal, $100 million for the 5 years, something like that, and still hit free agency again at 29. So, I can see it would be in his best interest to do that. And I think the club will talk to him about that. I really do.
You just talked about the future. Next year's All-Star game is at Wrigley Field. Do we have an All-Star game next year?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be in July or not. Yeah. Remember was it 90? When was it after? There was one of those years that it seemed like, maybe it was after COVID that they started the season with the All-Star game.
That was actually, I think that was back in the late 70s, early 80s, somewhere around there.
Okay, I don't remember when it was, but there seemed like to me there was some year back in the past that they
before
had
you were born,
disagreement, or yeah, it could have been, or I've forgotten about it anyway, one or the other. That so maybe if you get to that, maybe that'd be the kickoff for the season would be the All-Star game or something. I hope it doesn't get to that point. I hope there's some sense. It didn't sound like from what people said from the union and the commissioner's office in the meetings that they had with the media and stuff in Philadelphia. It didn't sound like there's a lot of still very much room for compromise on some of these agreements. So it's going to be interesting to see how their discussions, continue here as we go through the season and get closer to that December 1st deadline. But hopefully cooler heads will prevail and they'll find some room for compromise, and we won't have to talk about that anymore.
Rob, I know when you were down for your event that we participated in at Leong's a few weeks ago, you got to go by and watch the young Cardinals play a little bit. I think we're blessed in seeing guys like Liam Doyle and Rainiel Rodriguez, who were in the Futures game over the weekend, do their thing here in Springfield. Rodriguez won't turn 20 until January. What do you think the timetables are for him and Doyle and and the progression. If you had to make a projection on when they'll be at Memphis, will they skip Memphis? Will they go to St. Louis? What do you see?
Yeah, I don't see them skipping Memphis because I think that they're going to, probably benefit from having some time at that level. And especially, again, I think part of it, again, is kind of like we talked about with some of those guys coming up from Memphis to St. Louis. They're going to need an opportunity to play. So you got Bernal at Memphis catching and playing first base a little bit too, like Rainiel's doing in Springfield. So I think whether they move up to Memphis this season or finish the year in Springfield, it's kind of going to be determined by what happens with those other moves. Now, you got to remember Memphis is already qualified for the playoffs too, so you can get a few extra games at the end of the season in the playoffs that they probably are not going to get in Springfield unless they win that second half down there. So that's also a factor to look into that. So, they're very, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do with those guys. I think, Rodriguez obviously is the real deal. He's going to be fine, but I don't think they're going to rush him. He doesn't, the good advantage of both of those guys is they do not have to go on the 40-man this winter. So even if there is a labor dispute next year, they still will be able to play in minor league baseball because they're not on the 40-man roster. So that's something obviously to keep an eye on.
Is Rodriguez a bat or a catcher?
He's caught. I mean, I think they're positive feedback on him as a catcher. I mean, obviously he's going to be a hit first kind of guy, but I think, you talk to the pitchers who've worked with him in Palm Beach and even a little bit yet in Peoria and Springfield, and they're very happy with his game calling and with his, framing and obviously throwing ability. So I think that, it's still, again, 19 years old. I mean, he's got a lot of chance of time on his side to get better and to improve, and they're going to keep him working there. I mean, he's going to get to the major leagues as a bat, but I think right now they think he could stick a catcher. But then again, that's a position of strength in this organization right now, and you're going to have to figure that out. You cannot have room for all those guys to catch in the big leagues. Somebody's going to have to move positions or, be part of a deal to go somewhere else to bring something else back.
Rob, always appreciate your time and insight. Before we let you go, didn't get your thoughts on the All-Star game. Did you go out in your driveway and light up a sparkler during the fifth inning like
No, but I actually thought all of the stuff surrounding the game, take away from the game itself, was really cool. I thought they did a really nice job with the kids riding in on their bicycles with that sparkler thing. That's a tribute to Sandlot. I thought that was really cool, and I thought the ceremonies before the game and all that kind of stuff. And that's what it's an exhibition game, and that's, you kind of go for the theater part of that as well as the game. I wish it had been a better game. I think that there was kind of a snooze fest there, and I think there's got to be a way to get, some of the more star players back into the game. I don't know what it is, but I thought the number that they said on the TV was, and I didn't look it up to confirm it, but I think they said 36 first-time All-Stars, which, of course, all three of those guys from the Cardinals were part of that mix, and you like to see that. But I also want to see some of the guys that you expect to see in those All-Star games. I mean, remember back in the day, you saw all the stars of, every league in both games, and that's, as the game has changed and the importance of the game in some players' minds and or some teams' minds has changed. So I don't know how they get that back, but that's something that they need to work on, because you take away some of that star power out of the game, I think it loses a little bit of its luster.
Well, Ned and I would love to see you put on a Jordan Walker jersey and hat for your next assignment and go sit through a series in Philadelphia and write about it, okay?
I might have batteries thrown at me like J.D. Drew did.
We don't do that in
Philly.
Those vile Philadelphia people.
Did you ever throw batteries at somebody from the bleachers in Philadelphia back in your day?
Continuing with the show, we'll continue on.
Well, first of all, Rob, they didn't have batteries back then in Ned's era. They were still trying to figure out electricity, so that's a problem.
Philly's the Cardinals go there in August, so that'll be an interesting series.
Yeah. Rob, thanks for your time. We'll talk again soon.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Check out the podcast. You'll enjoy it.
And it's on Saturday mornings here on the station as well. Yep.
Perfect.
Thanks Rob.
You.
Springfield Kickapoo, University of Kansas product, and of course a Media Hall of Famer, Rob Raines, visiting with St. Louis. Back in a second. And we welcome you back to the starting lineup. So much to go on today's show, and should be a lot of fun. Yeah,
I'm going to talk to Chris Pinson, a Color 10 here coming up at the bottom of the hour. Ned, big event coming into town Monday night involving the Chiefs, and an annual event that's a lot of fun for the fans.
It's all on. It's sponsored by the studio right around down the hallway from here, and that's the K104.7, and it is the Chiefs' annual excursion, so to speak, down here into the Ozarks. Mitch Holtis and Danon Hughes come down. It's all out at the Alamo. The Alamo Drafthouse begins at 5 o'clock on Monday afternoon. There's an hour of socializing, and then the event itself, which is a question and answer period, begins about 6. last year we had a pretty good theater. I would say maybe 350, 400 people, and I think Mike Holmes told us that's about what they're expecting this year. But there is room for more. The tickets are available. They're on the website, and I think he told me there's still a row available of seats that haven't been purchased yet. But it's a good show. You get a good insight into what the Chiefs are going to do. It is really the very day that the Chiefs are opening up their training camp. They have their first session, I believe, on Wednesday, and then for the public on Thursday. But regardless of that, the guys are there, and they can give you a really good insight as to what's going on.
Wanted to bring up had the draft last week, and of course, Caden Bogenpole, drafted by the Phillies, second round, headed to Clearwater soon, if not already there to start his pro career. But a couple notes from there. Rock Chalowski, the number one pick overall by the White Sox, signed a record $10.35 million bonus as that number one pick. So he got paid, the UCLA shortstop did. But ESPN broke down the recruiting classes, so to speak, the draft classes of the MLB teams, and wanted to kind of look at the Cardinals and the Royals. On the Cardinals, the best value listed is shortstop Rocco Maniscalco, second rounder. It says looked more like a late first round pick, late in the process, but a number of teams were in the same spot I was personally in, with a bad taste in my mouth when Maniscalco struggled in a high-profile game early in the spring against an 89, 91-mile-per-hour pitcher. So he's considered the best value. They got him later.
Is he a college kid?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I'm trying to think, and I'm trying to remember where he went. We'll look that up. Quickest to the big leagues, right-handed pitcher Cal Randall in the fifth round. Says might only have one pitch, but it's a really good one. Might be good enough to get big league hitters out almost on its own. Randall sat 95 to 98 and hit 101 with good lift on his fastball. From a low three-quarter slot and huge extension, it might be as perfect of a fastball shape as exists in the history of the sport. And it said, a rival scout told me, and this again is an ESPN writer, quote, if they get him in the zone consistently, he's in the bigs tomorrow. And so that's.
And he was a number 5?
Fifth round pick, Cal Randall. Sleeper to watch, right fielder Andrew Williamson, who they took in the second round. Said went to my alma mater, UCF, but he also had a case to go higher than 68th. Was ranked 50th. He's got brings a big bat to the game. So that's kind of the Cardinals guys. And looking at the Royals, best value was left-handed pitcher Justin Legernick in the sixth round. Quickest to the big leagues, left-handed pitcher Max Yale, YEHL, third-round pick. Says it's exactly the type of prospect where moving him quickly in shorter stints might be the smartest move. He's already 22 years old, sat out last year due to Tommy John, pitched for West Virginia this year. So gives you a little look there. Sleeper to watch for the Royals, right-handed pitcher Jack Slydom in the second round. Was a spring pop-up name for many scouts, but he rose from I heard he's throwing hard, I need to see him type deal. So gives you a little insight there to the drafts, and, of course, we'll have to wait a year or two at least to see where these guys go.
Have you gone through the list of free agents and whether or not they're signed? I'm especially interested in Zach Stewart.
Have not seen anything on Zach. Just personally, if they thought that there was swing and miss in Curry Sutherland's game, there's even a little bit more of that in Zach's game, and so that would be the route. And there's guys that get there. I mean, guys that go the undrafted route, get in, make their mark, and climb the ranks, and hope that for him. He had a very good year at Arkansas. By the way, Arkansas, I think, was ranked as the fifth best portal class in college baseball. They were very, very active, even more so than usual. DVH said, we got to get some new guys in here and mix this thing up. So, but we'll see. And of course, for the Bears with Curry and Max Knight coming back, that's a Bears baseball team going in the spring that ought to be the favorite in the Conference USA.
This will be a very interesting year coming up. Anxious to see what kind of scheduling they go through. Now, Joey has said that they're scheduling up, playing a lot of difficult teams, and that's fine. That's the way it needs to be. You need to get experience of playing against the stronger clubs. But I think this is going to be a pretty good team. Now, the record may not show it right away, but I really feel like Missouri State will be a force about a year from now.
Yeah, and very good story on the Springfield Citizen. in the last 24 hours by Ryan Collingwood talking about the Lady Bears and Beth Cunningham and how she was able to retain basically every key person they need back. So there's another team that when the Conference USA women's basketball polls come out, ought to be, I would think, the preseason favorite. It's so hard to track what happens in the portal unless you've got a source to go look at. And Ryan did a really good job of pointing out that Louisiana Tech, the regular season champion, got obliterated by the portal. They had one girl went to Arkansas, another one went to Bama. So the kids that they could have got back, as the regular season champs last year, they got hit hard.
The one thing that you saw from the Lady Bears' experience in the NCAA, at least in my opinion, was the fact that they need some bigger people. Now, finding that in female basketball is not as easy as it would be in the men, but there are good athletes out there, and I hope the portal rewarded Missouri State with some pretty good athletes, and I'm quite sure that it did. This will be, I agree with you, I think it'll be a very interesting year coming up.
They got the Linthicum girl from Mizzou coming down to bring some size in, and, they were able to retain their own kids that were inside. So I think, and of course the big one was getting, you knew Cayman Beckemeyer wouldn't go anywhere. I mean, she's a Lady Bear through and through. She said it with us on the show here. When you can retain the league's leading scorer at 17 points a game, 8 rebounds, which is still one of the great, 7 wonders of the world, how a 5'10" or 5'9" guard gets 8 rebounds a game. So it should be a big year there. And on the men's basketball front, it's a whole new mix for Coach Martin, so we'll see what happens.
I'll tell you how you get those 8 rebounds a game. She plays the game to win.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's a fierce competitor, and you look at the greats in Lady Bear history. What was the common trait between Melody Howard and Jackie Stiles and Tara Mitchum and Cayman Beckemeyer? They hate to lose, and if they feel it's coming on, another gear's found.
How about Drewry's Molly Miller?
Molly Miller, same way. Molly Carter, yeah. Let's take a break and come back and visit with Chris Pinson.
Starting lineup. Return in a second. And the starting lineup is brought to you by Played Against Sports, by Swing Right Golf, by Citizens Bank of Rogersville, and by Marshfield Chevrolet. I'm Ned Reynolds.
Scott Puryear.
Martin's not with us today, but the fact of the matter remains he will return tomorrow. And a special guest.
We do have a special guest. And again, it's summer. It's time to dive into some of the things that we can't really get to during the school year because we have so much going on and to talk about. But Chris Pinson has moved into the main chair at Color 10 Sports and Ozarks First. And I was just sitting there thinking, we don't really know Chris Pinson very well. I mean, you've been here 3 years, almost 4 years. So we welcome in Chris Pinson to tell us what we'll call the Chris Pinson story. Chris, good morning.
Hey, gentlemen, how you doing?
We're doing great. And kind of let's start off with that. Kind of tell us how you wound up in Springfield, Missouri, where you grew up, where you went to college. Give us the deets.
All right, pretty simple. Born and raised Florida boy. Spent 34 of my 37 years here on Earth. Born and raised in Florida. So I always I do chuckle this time of year whenever I hear about the oppressive Midwestern humidity because, no offense, ain't got a whole lot on Florida's, okay? But hey, it is still hot nonetheless around here. I grew up in Florida. I played very, very small-time college tennis at an NAIA school in Lake Wales, Florida, called Weber International University. And then I transferred to UCF. And so I'm a Knight, charge on. That's where I got my broadcasting degree. And I've been working in either radio or television since 2016, all doing sports mainly. So, yes, I was in Gainesville for 3 years, starting in 2020. Actually, Scott, you'll appreciate this. So when I started in Gainesville in 2020, it was February 4th. And the last sport, right, and at that time, I was just the weekend sports photographer for the ABC affiliate there, WCJB TV 20. And I remember covering Calipari with Kentucky at Florida with Mike White as their head coach. And that's when Florida blew an 18-point lead with 12 minutes to go.
Oh, wow.
Kentucky came back, tied the game, forced overtime, and won that game. And that was the last sporting event I actually covered. Of course, then COVID shut down the world. And my boss came to me, my news director, and he said, hey, you got 2 options. Because the world shut down. So either A, you can stay on and work behind the scenes and work towards your goal of maybe being on air for us, or you can find another job. And so I thought, well, this is what I want to do, so I'll stick around. And so fast forward, And 2 years later, I was at the end of my contract in 22. And, I got the job out here and been out here with you guys ever since, covering the Ozarks and Springfield Cardinals, Missouri State, Drury, and Evangel, and the whole mix. So it's been quite the ride. But you know what? I thoroughly, aside from that cold, icy white stuff, I thoroughly enjoy my time out here in the Ozarks.
You are out of your mind if you're enjoying that stuff. But that you partially answered the question, Chris, when you came up here now and you found, it's 5 degrees, maybe even 0, maybe even below 0.
Yeah.
And here the Miami Dolphins come in to play the Chiefs, and it's the coldest night in history, whatever. How did you react to all that?
I can tell you one thing. I was glad to be inside watching it and not being at the game or participating. I know that for a fact. I'll tell you all this. When it was so I moved. So I pulled in to my apartment on December 15th of 2022. And I remember it was so cold then that so one of my former coworkers is the former weather gal for KY3, that'd be Nicolette Zangira. So she and I worked together in Gainesville, as we were both on the weekends. And so I actually contacted her and said, hey, it's pretty freezing cold as I'm pulling in. Could you please beat me to my apartment, unlock my door, and turn on my heat for me? So she and her husband, Paul, did that for me. And matter of fact, he helped me get my mattress and some clothes up the stairs on the U-Haul. So that was pretty nice of them. But I will say this. My favorite memory so far being here is hanging out. So that weekend, of course, I started. And Sunday night, after I got off the air, right, Dan Lucy was here, right, to make sure I could actually do the job on the weekends. And so that Sunday night, you can look this up, it had to be like either -10 or something close to it, because the wind was howling, the snow was blowing. And I'll never forget, Sunday after that 10 o'clock show, Dan Lucy and I were bundled up head to toe. We were arm in arm because we had to park in the back parking lot of our station. And that's from our door. That's probably a good 30-yard, 50-yard walk. So he and I are bundled up head to toe, can barely see, and we were arm in arm, step in step, getting through this torrential storm of snow into the car. Somehow, some way, my Ford sedan from Florida started up, his truck started up, and after that, we were off and running. But, I always fondly remember me and Dan wandering through the frozen tundra to get to our cars that night.
Chris, you got 3 years plus with Dan Lucy, local legend, did his job professionally, and contract not renewed. You moved up to kind of the guy now. You've got a weekend, a young girl just out of Missouri State. Kind of talk about what you learned from Dan, and I know one of the things that Color 10 said, we're going to approach sports in a different way. Kind of talk about that shift and how things will be done differently with what you guys do.
Yeah, look, working with Dan was honestly so much fun. It's so funny, right? And this is why I asked Caden Bogenpol this question. I asked Jacob Clark this question. Obviously, I asked our very large friend down in Miami about this as well. It's funny, right? When people see you on television, right? Whether you do our jobs, of course, like Ned did for years, and Scott, you've been doing the media thing forever as well. It's almost like people put a veil up, that you're not just a regular person, right? You're different. And that's one thing I love about Dan is that, Dan's always Dan. Like, Dan is literally the same guy on TV as you see out at Menards. And so, I just love the fact that Dan was always Dan. And when I got here, Dan looked at me and literally said, he goes, I know that I'm your boss on paper. He goes, but you and I are partners. He goes, we're a 2-man team. You came from a 2-man team. He's like, so you know how this works. And so again, Dan was not just a great friend, but a great mentor, a great boss. We worked so well together in collaboration, because we both cared so much about the product. And again, right, your job isn't your life. But obviously, as you guys know, when you care about something, you put so much time and effort and energy into it because you want to do a good job, because if you're going to do something right, that's how you should do it. And so, that's what I learned from Dan, was again, just to go for my first job, hey, look, right, I went from market 160, I jumped to 75, not a bad jump in the polls here. And so working with Dan was just so much fun, covering sports and getting to be a part of so many moments. I often teased him and said, man, I wish I could have gone back, almost 20 or 30 years and gotten to really have the privilege like you guys did of going to cover, the Rams at the Super Bowl or the Cardinals at the World Series. Because obviously, money's different nowadays with things, and obviously things are getting consolidated. And so it's kind of a shame that we don't have the same amenities we used to have in local television. But hey, that's time and you can't change it. But yeah, from Dan, that's what I learned was just show up, do a good job, be yourself. If you don't know something, ask a question. Again, Dan was just he's still a great friend, obviously, and I do miss him greatly because we had a lot of fun together.
And then that new approach that they're talking about, how do you interpret that?
Right. So I know a lot of people have kind of questioned, right? Why do we do sports now differently? So differently is this, as you guys know, and again, especially the man sitting next to you in the chair, right? Sports traditionally for decades has always been buried at the end of the sportscast, has always been buried at the end of the newscast. And so our management felt like, hey, in this new world of social media and awareness and brand recognition, right? They feel like it's not necessary for sports to be buried at the bottom anymore. So now if you watch our newscast at 9 and 10, sports, whether it's me hosting, Monday through Friday, or it's Madeline Darst, our new weekend gal fresh out of MSU, we put sports throughout the actual newscast. So Monday night, Monday night, when Jordan Walker, right, blew away the world and came back and rallied to win the home run derby, at 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, you saw me in the A block of our newscast talking about Jordan Walker winning the home run derby. And then I was at the D block talking about my story of Republic, Kieran Govan, looking back at his career at Republic and now how he's looking forward to his senior season there and going on and playing for Mizzou next year. So it is different, but I'm still giving coverage to the big things people here are going to talk about, the local coverage. So it is different, but it's not a bad different, I don't think.
It's a very good apportionment is what you just articulated, and it's something that I'd railed about for years and years. Instead of having things in a certain category in your newscast, you do what's important, what the public really wants to hear. For instance, as an example now, the World Cup is probably at the top of many individuals, I should say, spectrum as far as what goes on in news. Well, okay, why not put that at the very top? But no, we've got to lower it down or have an individual talking about it and what the hell's going on. That's number one. Number two, and I love what you had to say, too, about the passion, and Puryear will back this up as well. Those of us in the sports profession, this is not work. This is what our passion is. This is what we have strived to do and why you want it to be a whole lot better, because it's our lives, and that's the key. It isn't with everybody, but I do know for the individuals with whom I've had the great association in this community, it is with all of them.
And unfortunately, management knows that, and they pay us accordingly over those years. Hey, you're doing what you love to do. It's your passion. Go enjoy. Here's your check, right?
Wait a minute. I didn't agree to work for free.
Yeah, you didn't get paid. Yeah. Chris, KY3 couldn't do what you guys are doing because everybody would freak out thinking they were 5 minutes from Wheel of Fortune. And their whole body clock would be thrown out if sports came on at the 10-minute mark. But coming from Florida and your background, and of course we know that's a recruiting hotbed in all sports because of the talent down there. But coming up here and understanding the passion that we have for high school sports in the Ozarks, how long did it take you to realize that? And was it different in that regard down in Gainesville?
I will tell you, okay, here's what I have found to be the most, eye-opening, jaw-dropping difference in the Sunshine State with athletics compared to out here. Two things. Number one, because I know all of us would have killed for this when we were much younger. Look, I'm 37, so I know I'm kind of the baby on the broadcast here. But, guys, I think it is phenomenal how cool it is that you look at, especially Nixa, but other high schools around this area that have their own high school announcing production for sports. Mm-hmm. I would have killed for that when I was in school because, like you guys, when I was younger, I did a lot of play-by-play work. And that's truly, honestly, if I could turn back time, I probably would have told myself, hey, after UCF, don't go in local news, pursue your passion of play-by-play. Because that's really been what I've always wanted to do. But right, hey, we make decisions, and again, I'm happy with my life, but I certainly wish maybe I probably would have gone to like a minor league affiliate and done that. But for these kids today that have the chance to go to high school and come out with a tape that they can go to a college at and go straight to it and say, hey, here's what I've done, right? Look how I've grown throughout my high school career. I think that is the coolest thing for them because Florida, right, unless you're one of the prominent many private schools out there, I don't know of any public school I covered, at least, in north central Florida in the Gainesville area, which by the way, when you're in Gainesville is very much like here in Southwest Missouri. You're kind of in your own little backyard, in your own little world, because Jacksonville is 90 minutes to the northeast, like St. Louis is 3 hours away for us here. Orlando and Tampa, you're looking at least another probably 2 hours, 2.5. I mean, you're on your own area like we are here. So I love that similarity because once you leave the college-friendly confines of the Gainesville area, like here in Springfield, you have all these other small towns. So like your Fairgrove, your Stratford, your Mountain Grove, etc. Out there in Gainesville, you've got towns like Bronson and Branford and Bradford and all these small towns that if you grow up there, that's all you know. And it's a nice, simple way of living life. So I find the parallels here very refreshing because they are so similar. And of course, you guys have tons of golf courses, which is great. Right. But back to your question about athletics, right. The real jaw dropper, besides the fact that out here there are so many opportunities for high school kids to get announcing opportunities early, is in Florida, unless you're a private school, I never, ever covered a public school like an Ozark, a Nixa, a Republic, a Kickapoo, or anything out here that is building an arms race for indoor training facilities. That doesn't happen. Yeah. None of the schools I covered in the North Central Florida area even dreamt of this stuff. So the fact that you already have 3-4 more high schools here in this area that have produced such an incredible facility to train these athletes, and especially football, it's mind-blowing to me that Florida, as you said, one of the top 3 hotbeds in the country for talent, is so far lacking in that. But hey, good on the Ozarks here for having such incredible amenities dedicated towards these kids and their futures.
The Bears played down there. You wouldn't remember this, but you may have. I think you were probably born, but this would have been 1986. And
2 years before me.
Okay, you were still that gleam. I understand, but the Bears played in the NIT down there. NIT quarterfinal game against the Florida Gators and Vernon Maxwell and people like that.
Right.
We had a pretty doggone good team. Florida beat Missouri State, or actually Southwest Missouri State, 54-53, because they had two extra players on the court. They were both wearing striped shirts. Thank you. At last, we'll say.
Chris, I know you're an avid golfer. Do you have a favorite course so far locally that you like to go out and beat it around a little bit?
Oh man, that is a tough question because again, right, the elements here are different. Right, we actually have seasons out here, which is so nice, minus the cold white stuff. But I will say, right, I mean, it is there's 2 things I found about Missouri golf courses. Number one, no matter what course you play out here, I mean, whether it's Bill and Payne that I live closest to, so I normally play there a lot, whether it's Bill and Payne or, I mean, it's Hidden Valley or Dream Valley, take your pick. No matter where you go here in Southwest Missouri, it seems like all the public courses are generally in really good shape. I mean, and I can tell you, you can't say that about a lot of public courses in Florida just because that heat and humidity is so brutal. I can't tell you how many times in the last 10 years in my hometown of Sebring, Florida, which is a retirement young family hotbed and a golf hotbed, that the courses there have gone through, either green changes or course changes to try to keep up with the elements. It's that brutal. So kudos out here for you guys keeping the courses so nice year round, even when the snow comes in. But number 2, I don't know what was in the water when all the golf architects were building these courses, but guys, there's not a comfortable par 3 out here. Every par 3 is 170 or longer from the white tees. I'm like, no wonder people move to Florida. It's 130, 135 when you're hitting off the white tees down there. That's a pretty nice swing, okay?
We're bigger and stronger here.
Yeah. We're beef fed, people around here and stuff. Yeah, you need to go down and play cliffhangers down at big at Johnny's play courses down at Top Florida. Yeah, that's all par 3. It's sensational. Chris, before we let you go, I know that every kid, young professional that gets into the business has a dream. What is your ultimate assignment down the road for you? Where do you want to be 20 years from now, and what do you want to be doing?
Ooh, 20 years from now, boy, let's see. I'll be 2046, and in 20 years I'll be closing in on 60. So that's a big question. But ultimately, guys, again, I look back now. Again, I wish I would have probably stuck more with the play-by-play route, just because I like Ned. Especially, I look now at Corey Riggs and Art Haynes and those guys who get to, and of course Tom Ladd, all the guys right that get to go and get paid to be at the game. Because I promise you, if anybody's ever sat by me at these Bears games, I'm doing my little play-by-play just because that's ingrained.
Sure.
But ultimately, I've always dreamt of being a network personality. So whether it's on Golf Channel or somewhere in that level, that's where I'd like to be. But as you know, right, time is funny, and you are where you are. That'd be my dream. But ultimately, all my family's back in Florida, so it'd be nice maybe to latch on with a professional team down there and be part of something permanent. And maybe more better suited for whatever inflation comes with the economy as we move forward in 20 years. But I'll say this: it's true, right? You don't get into the sports business for money, right? As we laugh, you don't do that. But like any job, if you do it well enough and you have the passion and you have the talent, people will notice, right? So you can climb the ranks. You can earn a decent living, and you can have fun with it. And so, again, for me, to go from Gainesville, where I was earning peanuts as the weekend guy, to jump out here, put in my time, again, right now assume the big boy chair here at Ozarks First Color 10. Again, I've had way worse jobs. I've had way worse things that I didn't like to do. So as we laugh about, but it's true, with sports, the reason why these jobs are so precious and few is because everybody who covers sports knows eventually a job is a job. But to wake up every day to know that my assignment is to figure out what the sports news of the day is, when I look around my office and see all my friends, my coworkers going, man, boy, it's a slow summer. What can I find on Capitol Hill, right, or our City Hall, or something that doesn't sound fun and exciting to do? Yeah, I think back and say, life ain't bad. You get to cover sports for a living, and sports are fun.
Very well said, Chris. We appreciate your time and getting to know you more, and we'll be tuning in the rest of our lives. So thanks for your time.
Hey, by the way, I got one question for y'all.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys saw this. I saw this yesterday. I'm going to talk about it tonight on the air. So apparently the NCAA has approved, mainly for Power 4 conferences, the use of the ABS Challenge Ball and Strike system.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be coming for spring of 2027. I'm going to try to find out if we can get that here. Yeah, obviously, we play at a great facility in Route 66. Do you guys like that system? Do you guys like that change to baseball?
I do.
I do, too. I think if you can get it right, you might as well. But we'll talk more about that, Chris. Hey, we appreciate it. Again, thanks, and look forward to seeing your report on that as well.
All right, see you guys.
Thanks, Chris. You bet.
Chris Penson, KOLR. Timeout. Back in a second. Out of time, folks. Ned Reynolds.
Scott Puryear. We'll see you tomorrow.